Okay, so let's get started here. I am going to do my very best to squeeze in as much as I possibly can into this time. Thanks so much for the introduction. My name is Natasha Phipps. I'm a investor-focused realtor and investor first and foremost, and work with all the real estate groups. Like Taylor said, if there's a conference, I'm usually likely there. And live and breathe real estate every single day. Most recently as well, I have also launched my own real estate investment trust in the last couple of years. And really just, I'm addicted to real estate. That's what it comes down to. Here's my contact information. I'll share it again at the end. I do have a Facebook group here called Calgary Real Estate Investing. If you guys want to join it, would love to have you there as well. But let's dive into it. So, what's driving the Calgary market? And it really comes down to the economics, which I know there's so many brilliant minds here in this group today. They know to look at the economics. And this is really no different, but let's review it very quickly. It really comes down to the people, right? What are the people in Canada doing? Where are they going and why are they going there? Number one, affordability really started driving migration into Calgary and Alberta. When COVID hit and over the last few years, we have seen high interest rates, high inflation. People are struggling to make the numbers work for them on a monthly basis. And people started flocking to Alberta. Alberta is calling. That was all over the internet. And it was really, really true. It was amazing to see like planefuls of people just arriving here in Alberta. And the second point, which I'm most excited about, is diversification of our economy. And that's something I've been talking about for many years now. I could talk for an hour just on how many cool companies are making Calgary home and diversifying our economy. And I was joking the other day recently that I don't even know the daily price of oil anymore. Growing up and into my earlier part of my career, every day you would know the price of oil. That was what drove our life, really. That's not the case anymore. There's so much more to Alberta. Of course, the energy sector is not going anywhere, and it's still a major contributor and always will be. But it's really good to see more diversification to hopefully provide us more stability here in our real estate market. So following the people is a big one. Like I said, in our property management division, for a couple of years now, almost, at least half, if not upwards of 75–80% of our applications every single month are from out of town people looking for places to live. They're either moving here or they're already here and can't find a place to live. So this is where the investors come in and really need to be providing housing for these people. Lifestyle is another big one, just from the cost of living, but also the bit of a slower pace that Calgary provides. The proximity to the Rocky Mountains, of course, is a big one. It's a different lifestyle than other major Canadian cities. And this is a big one. Calgary has the highest GDP per capita of major Canadian cities and has for quite some time. Even through Alberta's worst, kind of toughest years, this has been the case. And with that comes high wages. So a lower cost of living, higher wages, that's really exciting and a real draw for people. We also have the highest concentration of high-tech workers of Canadian cities. This is huge. And we are seeing this for sure with the types of people and tenants that we are drawing. And then we also have the highest head office concentration of major Canadian cities as well. So really good jobs, a lot of white collar type of opportunities here for our workers and people living in Calgary. So for investors, this slide is pretty self-explanatory, but even yesterday, these calls come in all the time and people are looking for the exact same things. Number one is the lower entry price. Being able to invest in Alberta or call Alberta home, the numbers are just different, and that attracts people immediately. From an investment standpoint, lower taxation is a big one. No land transfer taxes, that's huge. And the third one is becoming more and more a draw that I hear about all of the time. I've had many investors move their entire portfolio to Alberta solely because of the landlord and tenancy laws here. They're a lot more fair, and you also have a lot more recourse if something does go wrong in a timely fashion. So if something does go wrong with a property here in Alberta, wait time for a hearing is usually just a matter of weeks, 2 to 4 weeks, I would say is average. And you get a result from that pretty quickly. So in other provinces, we hear very different stories, and that is a big draw for people. No rent control either in Alberta. We are seeing in the news some, rumors or ideas that maybe rent control would come in place. I personally don't think we're going to see that. But of course, that's fair to happen when we're seeing high rental rates increase. It does become a concern for people, which is why we need more housing. But as we've seen in other provinces, rent control doesn't work exactly the way people think it will. And really, the rental market has exploded. Where rental rates were, 5 years ago versus where they are now is just a totally different picture. And that's because of the people. 70% of the interprovincial migration in Canada is coming to Alberta. So that is a lot of people. For 2023, we saw a vacancy rate of 1.4%. That is extremely low, extremely tight. It is very difficult for tenants trying to find a good place to live. And Calgary average rent for 2023 was up 14.3%. And I would even venture to say that number could be higher for sure, depending on the type of property. So what is happening in the actual market? Let's look at the actual statistics here. So we are sitting in very tight inventory conditions, even for the middle, of winter, where usually we are seeing things sit for a little while. Historically, that is not the case right now. Key stats here, really my favorite stat is always months of supply. That gives me a very quick indicator of the type of market that we're in. We are sitting at 1.30% months of supply for January. That is a 36% decrease from last January. So that means very tight conditions. There's not a lot for sale. It's making our job very difficult to get people into something, and an average days on market of 34 days. Inventory significantly down 12% over January of last year as well. On the next slide, we'll dive into the actual average price per type of home. Where we are seeing, and this is an interesting indicator that I'm watching, new listings rose for homes priced above 300K, but the largest gains of how many listings were listed are above 700K. And I'm wondering if this is because of the renewals that might be coming up this year, if those larger mortgages are just a little bit difficult for people. And so they're, taking advantage of the really hot market and exiting. So this is something I'm going to be watching. We're just kind of starting to see this happen right now. But the rise of listings that we did see, or rise of sales that we did see a little bit in January, did not change low inventory. We're just nowhere near close to a balanced market. So we'll continue to see a tight market condition, and it's only probably going to get tighter as spring approaches. So this, I always love this little snapshot. This is from January as well. So total residential price average, that's one thing, but it really comes down to what's happening in each category. Detached average price home for Calgary now is over $700,000. So that is pretty significant for Calgary. And when we started into this kind of boom over the last couple of years, I've been talking a lot about this, in that the detached prices are going to start to become too much, and these buyers are going to have to kind of downgrade. So maybe if they wanted a townhouse, now they're buying a condo, or a detached home, now they're buying a townhouse. And that's exactly what's happening. The recessionary period that Alberta saw, the most impacted sector of the market was the apartments. By far, you have higher volatility in asset types that have higher density, of course. So the condo market really took a beating through, the recessionary years that Calgary and Alberta went through. And this is kind of the last sector of the market that's really now starting to take off. So we've been seeing for a couple of years now, detached prices, well, more than a couple of years, few years, detached prices doing pretty well and seeing some good appreciation. But the apartments, really, we're just starting to see that in the last year or so in any sort of significant way. And so there is large demand here in apartments now as well, which has not been the case for quite some time. Now, we talked about months of supply sitting at 1.3. Of course, that is a really key indicator to watch for Calgary as we move into the spring here. I want to talk specifically about condos for a second. So we talked about affordability. That's what's driving demand. What we've seen for our investors over the last year or so is many investors bought condos at the height of the market, 8-10 years ago, and have really, not been able to recover their purchase price that they bought. And now we're starting to get to that level where we're getting close to what they paid or a little bit more. So if you have some of those condos that maybe you bought at a little bit of the wrong time when we were at the height of the market, now could be a time to exit and get that capital working in something that might make better sense with the strategy that you want to execute right now. Or if you want to keep it, at least your value is kind of where it is, and the rental market certainly has come up to a place where the numbers can work for you. New construction, I do want to point out a couple concerns that I do have when we do see the boom in the market that we're seeing. Of course, that draws a lot of development, which is good, and we need that. But there is some, like some things are better than others. So if you're looking at new construction condos, really take a look at where it's located, what the plan is around this property for it. There's some projects out there that I'm kind of like, I would rather you choose a different area if it was me. So take a look at what is being developed around these projects. Take a look at also what the sales comparables are today. Make sure you're buying at a price that makes sense. You're not buying at some really high future projected price, and really look at the data and ask those questions. There are some, situations that we're seeing right now too, where investors, bought really blindly a couple of years ago into some pre-construction projects. They thought assignments were, no problem here. They're not common here. They're very hard to execute. And with new marketing legislation put out by the Canadian Real Estate Association, it makes it even harder for us to market these off-market type of opportunities. So they are very, very hard to execute. Relying on an assignment to exit an investment is not a good idea, in my opinion, ever. It is not guaranteed. It's great to have it as an option, but it's certainly not guaranteed. And there's people getting caught with that right now today that can't close because rates have gone up, or they just didn't, they didn't even speak to a broker to begin with. They just thought assignments would have been on the table. And these are problems we're trying to solve now. We didn't sell these units to them to begin with because we never would have given them that advice, but we're trying to be problem solvers and help these people. And then the last thing is, if you are looking at condos for Calgary, I would highly suggest working with a Calgary-based realtor. There is a lot of realtors in other provinces marketing Calgary right now because it's the hot place, but they don't know our city. I've seen things marketed as Calgary that are 30-40 minutes outside of Calgary. So please be cautious, do your homework, find the best person for the job. And someone, that's living in Toronto, I don't feel that has never been here is the right person for that job. So just my kind of word of warning there. Someone who lives here is going to know much, much better. So where are the opportunities in Calgary for 2024, in my opinion? Number one, secondary suites and accessory dwelling units. I've been kind of like banging this drum since 2018 for Calgary. Still not going anywhere. Suited, semi-detached properties, when you study those, that like residential strategy over decades has been the most predictable, safe investment, has worked through Calgary's ups and downs and everything in between, and I don't think it's going anywhere. We still need a significant amount of density added to our current city, and the city's very much on board with that. They're actually announcing a incentive program very shortly here. Like I'm kind of was hoping it would be out for this, but there's going to be some incentives provided for legalizing existing suites that are, not safe and up to code, as well as they are being very on board with adding new secondary suites. So secondary suites are a great way to value add or to just buy something turnkey. And they've worked very, very, very well for our investors for many, many years. Second one is cities on board with increasing density. If you're a developer, it is a great time to be looking at Calgary. There is, we could talk for an hour on this topic alone, but they are really allowing more density. They're providing blanket zoning for density across the entire city to RCG. That blanket zoning is massive. That's going to open up a lot of opportunities. They're relaxing parking requirements for, certain areas to be able to provide more density where the previous code wouldn't allow it. So certainly if you're into development, now is a good time to look. If we would have been talking, 4 or 5 years ago, I would have, absolutely not been on board with this because there just wasn't the buyers, there wasn't the renters, there just wasn't the demand, but now it is absolutely here. The third one, we talked a little bit about pre-construction, new construction, but there is some strategic areas of the city that I really like. And for new construction, right now, I'm really keen and excited on established areas where we're seeing new construction. Whereas for more residential type of houses, being in the suburbs, no problem at all. You'll do very well there still. But for the higher density stuff, I would prefer more of the inner city downtown. And the reason for that is when we looked at the numbers, I do think that's where we still have plenty of runway when it comes to appreciation. And there's only so much, locations to be developing in. So if you want to have a chat about that, let me know, but that's kind of my 2 cents. The problem with high density out in the suburbs is there's still plenty of land to build more high density. And so that's a little bit different than when you're purchasing just that suited home. We get asked a lot about Canmore, so I thought I would throw this in. We do have a pre-construction opportunity called the Banff Legacy Inn that we have been marketing, and I'll show you a couple photos hopefully at the end if I have time. But this is a zoned short-term rental property just outside of the Banff gates. That is pretty cool. So Canmore's not going anywhere. I mean, there's only so much land in Canmore. The mountains aren't going anywhere. It's going to continue to be a draw and continue to be something that investors look for. Let's talk about multifamily. I think I have like maybe 4 minutes left here. I have a lot of clients who are moving up from residential to multifamily, and I want to talk about why you might consider Alberta or Calgary specifically. Resale value add buildings. So there's plenty of buildings out there, kind of smaller, 6 units to say 20 units that have been run by the same group for a very long time, family type of operated buildings where they're not maximizing rents. They're not taking in the current rental environment, and they're underperforming seriously, but they also likely need work. So those type of value adds are there. Now, the benefit of that being in Alberta is, number one, you can turn an entire building around in a year. You can raise rents in a year, you can end tenancies inside of a year and renovate and improve these buildings. So those opportunities there for those more like visionary people who see a building and want to do something and improve the asset. And I think there's some cool opportunities for that. We're seeing a lot of new construction due to the development pieces that I chatted about. Mostly, in that kind of 6s and 8s and 12s and kind of the, medium to smaller size properties. So if you like new construction, those are definitely out there. And they work for some good financing opportunities as well. So the benefits of those as well is they're in like highly desirable inner city areas. And so you get very good tenant profile, high income people who just want a nice place to live and be kind of close to the downtown. And so those are really great 6plexes, 8plexes, and also something to consider if you want to develop as well, because we have buyers for those all day long. This is the Banff Legacy Inn. I wanted to point out just how pretty this project is, the Stack Townhouse project in Canmore. Just a quick overview. They start at $590 plus GST, and they have 1, 2, and 4 bedroom floor plans just outside of the Banff gates. All of these have underground parking, which is very cool too for a townhouse project. And this will be completed in 2 years. They have development permits in place, they're shovel ready, and they're ready to get going with construction here right away. So if this one's of interest, let me know as well. And I don't think you can really go wrong with Canmore. So this one has been highly desirable as well. I think I am close to my